behalf of IMC, I welcome you all to the day 2 of India Mobile Congress 2023. The session we have today is about monetizing connectivity, wherein we'll be talking about network as a service for seamless business growth. I'll quickly introduce you all with our participants and panelists who will be sharing their thoughts on this topic. So we have here Alok Shukla, Senior VP Product from Bharti Airtel. So if you could just come up. To join him, we have Lalit Chaudhary, Head of Cloud and Network Services, Business Nokia from Nokia. Next, we have Mr. Manjunath R. Lakshmi Narayanan, VP Engineering and India COE Lead from Ericsson. Further to join them, we have M.A. Johar, President Project Business, CP+. Next, we have Mr. David Markanich from Canonical, the Business Development Director. Can you have him here? And to join them all, we have our moderator for the day, Mr. Sumit Kapoor, who is Director with KPMG. Okay, sorry to miss this. Next we have is Mayank Gupta from TCS, the Global Head Network Solutions and Services.
Thank you. Good morning. I think we had a session before this one in the same hall, so we are expecting some people to still turn up or tune in. But meanwhile, let us start. Good morning. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here amongst the senior industry leaders, talking about the topic today around network as a service. Network as a service, if we actually talk about it, it has emerged as a large transformative force, which is changing the way organizations and businesses are going to run in the future. It is more about the unconventional networking methods that will be put into use going forward. If we talk about looking forward into 2030, it is expected about 90% of the businesses will have at least 25% of their network run as a service model. And I think that's something which is a very conservative view at this point in time, but our industry leaders would talk about on how this can accelerate further. How can we take certain actions and innovate in this particular field to make it more acceptable for the businesses, looking at it from a security point of view, looking at it from a service provider point of view, and the overall development point of view. India itself presents a large captive market. We have about 800 million internet users at this point in time, which exponentially increases the length and breadth of the network that is required at this point in time. It is expected by 2027 or 28, we'll have about 700 million 5G users in the country. That's also going to provide a large opportunity for network as a service to be adopted and at a rapid pace, at least in a country like India, and not just talking about globally from there on. Even from a government policy initiative, our NDCP really propagates national broadband. That's going to further enhance the use of the new age networks like network as a service. Now, when we talk about it, it is important that we also monetize this such a big opportunity, especially in a country like India, and we talk a little bit more about it. Now, I won't take a lot of time, and I will probably just deep dive into some of our panel members here. Starting with Mr. Lalit Chaudhary, if you would want to talk a bit about what's your view on network as a service, and also providing a context from your organizational point of view. Maybe if you can pass on the mic. And from there on, I think I'll request all other panel members as well to probably provide their view, and maybe we can go in that same sequence from there.
Thank you, Sumit. So from the Lightstorm perspective, when we think about a network as a service, we think that when an application is able to talk to the network directly, then that is what is called as network as a service. Okay, so there are 5 parameters on which we kind of take a look at the dashboard of the network as a service. Number 1 is agility. When I say agility, it is on demand. So number 2 is scalability. Scalability is that you can take the speeds from very low 10 Mbps all the way to 1 terabyte. So we can, if you are able to provide that level of scalability, that's when you have network as a service. And when you have availability, because availability at uptime is extremely important, and we provide 100% uptime on our networks. So availability is the 3rd parameter. 4th parameter is security. We have panelists here to talk more about it. But no security, the enterprise won't be able to adopt the service. And finally, it's visibility. If you can, whatever I talked about, if you cannot see it on your dashboard, that's what the network is providing you. That's what we believe at Lightstone. We have a platform which does that. And today, we are, if I can just delve into a use case, there are 3 things that are happening simultaneously today. Number 1 is we have a World Cup going. Okay? Number 2 is we have this $1 billion sale going, and then nobody wants to cook at home. So this is, you're running the network at the edge, okay, where all these services need to be provided, and the applications need a network that they can rely on. So there could never be a better day to provide network as a service. So that has passed.
Thank you so much, sir. And maybe I should request Mr. Alok now to give his views on the same.
So I think there are two parts to network as a service, the way I would imagine it. One part is, I think, the macro things that have changed. And very simply, there are 2 things. I think the cloud adoption across the board is a very, very big reality. I think that's one macro change. And the other part is the physical location of a person or an office or whatever it is. So I think these are 2 macro changes. As a result of which, there used to be network, there used to be a full IT and security ecosystem, which used to operate separately and managed separately. I think because of the 2 changes, essentially all of this collapsing into one service, whether that involves network, whether that involves security, whether that involves the typical networking, routing components, etc. And that's the opportunity for both higher growth as well as many new monetization opportunities. And all that put together is the way I would like to imagine network as a service.
Very well put across, Mr. Alok. I think, Mr. Manjunath, if you would like to come in and give your views on how you would see it happening differently.
Firstly, Namaskaram, good to see all of you. Happy to be here. The network as a service definition has been evolving, right? I mean, we've had this for quite a long time now, and every year is adding something new. So I'd like to kind of talk about it at a high level before we go into deeper. So in my view, any network construct that you're able to abstract from the underlying infrastructure layers with the ability to configure and be able to personalize in today's context for enhanced user experiences, right? The second thing is the ability to have the necessary agility in the system and provide the flexibility. At the same time, you want to minimize the tech debt that the organizations are incurring as part of the evolution as well. Now, traditionally, when you talk about NAS, you talk about the core and the edge, right? But, I would take the definition further and add to it, specifically for monetization, which is the key topic today, is extend that to the underlying network features which are beneath the surface. These are APIs that can be exposed out to monetize, and this is where the CSPs, have an opportunity to really monetize all these hidden features beneath it. And then also the IT services, the IT aspects of the network. So to kind of sum it all, I think the definition of NAS is evolving. I think in the next 5 years we'll be speaking about something more than what we're already speaking today.
Thank you. I think that's interesting. Some of the underlying layers that you talk about, I think that's going to be the feature, and we will be hearing a lot in the near term. So, Mr. Mayank, I think from your perspective, how would you see it differently when it comes to the adoption of it?
See, I think most of the points are covered by our friends here. But as an aside, our main goal or main view is to how we can deploy it faster, how we can well integrate it faster for the customers like our Airtel or any other enterprise customers that we have. So that's where NAS provides that scalability, flexibility to build it faster and deploy it faster. So that's what it is. And I'll keep it short. I think our host missed me. Maybe she was creating the slides here to reduce the time on this panel.
Thank you. I think David, some of your views, coming in from the organizational context of where you come from, are going to be very valuable as well.
Yes, thank you. So from Canonical, as the company that's behind Ubuntu, we look at network as a service from the perspective of supporting open source, supporting the economic benefits of open source, securing open source, and also the automation of that complex open source software that ultimately the CSPs are going to need in order to meet the needs of the developers, who ultimately are the ones who will be consuming those network functions and those APIs.
Thank you. I think, but let me throw some curveballs at you now. And Mr. Lalit, the first one is coming your way. I just want to, the benefit of the audience, would like to understand that you spoke about the agility, you spoke about being cost effective and agile. But can you share some real world examples on where or how has adoption of NAS benefited any of the organizations?
So one real world example is that one of our large customers, for foreseeable non-disclosure reasons, I can't give the names, but they came to us with the problem that we are an e-commerce platform, and we have always had these network glitches when we do these this annual event, and none of the networks are built for this kind of scalability, because you have a very short window in which you have a huge amount of demand on the network. And so they came to us, and today we have a letter from them. They thanked us for having this, their e-commerce Dashera sale run very, very smoothly. So this was one of the use cases that I can talk about. That's a real life.
Thank you. So it's quite interesting. And Mr. Alu, as we started the conversations with the World Cup, so there are a lot of type of deliveries that can be thrown your way, especially yesterday's match. I don't know how many of you saw it. It was pretty interesting. But anyway, coming on to the point of view, Mr. Alok, for you, if you can talk a little bit about, look, if the business has to really drive this, right? I know it's a lot of people say it's a CTO decision, it's a CIO decision, but at the end of the day, the businesses have to really drive this. And if the business strategies don't have a NAS adoption already built into there, or the pace at which you would want to go ahead with your business, it will not materially change the adoption. So how do you see from your perspective and where you are sitting, that how to embed NAS into the business strategies itself and then translate to your IT strategy?
Yeah, it's a very, very great question here. And before that, I think other than NICE, we should, on the light side, we should have mic also as a service. I think this passing on the mic, this needs some development also. But yeah, I think as everybody talked about, NAS is different thing to different organizations and different people, and it's still evolving. Nobody knows the perfect answer. But broadly, the 2-3 themes that at least we have seen is people want to use it for better agility to use different kinds of technologies and combine it as a service. That's one, better visibility, better simple manageability. The second key thing is about cost That's always a permanent driver for most businesses to keep on improvising and improving. And then the third part is all the new use cases that are emerging to support a user working from a hotel to a very big data center, and having one fabric and one architecture to support all these kinds of connectivities. So I guess some of these bigger themes is what is emerging in different segments, let's say retail or a manufacturing and all of that. And they have very different reasons for NAS adoption or very different business imperatives to go the NAS way. So as long as the offerings are sort of solving those particular problems, which is, by the way, not one across the board, I think that's the only takeaway, or that's the only driver, the way we see it, that adoption can improve, right? So yeah, I think that's my perspective on it.
I think, thank you. And that's a great segue because you talk about relevance and you talk about the use cases. If the use cases are there, the adoption is certainly going to be there. So that brings me to Mr. Manjunath. And would you like to talk a little bit about the use cases that are here and now, and maybe a couple of years in the future, where NAS adoption is going to change drastically, and probably there'll be opportunities to monetize as well?
Yeah, sure. See, I'm going to skip a few standard as-a-service use cases, right, which is, cost efficiency, scalability, automation. This is a given in any kind of as-a-service, and it applies to NAS as well. But I'll probably pick about, 3 or 4 broad areas. The first thing is, which I touched upon in my opening statement, is the usage of the CPaaS ecosystem and the vendors to embolden NAS, right? So there are a lot of hidden gems within the network today which are not, fully utilized and not fully exposed, to the level we would like it to. So these are, broadly, you can classify this into network information as one category, and then network, configuration as a second category. So network information can be things like, hyper-precise location without the usage of GPS, right? The second one could be real-time device status. Or you go to the configuration side, it can be something like QoD, quality of service on demand. So let's say you're a gamer, or you're an avid gamer, you like to play games on your 5G network, but you don't play all the time, right? You play for maybe an hour or two a day or in the night, but you don't want to end up paying for the higher bandwidth all the time, right? So how cool would it be if you're playing a game and say boost? And for that 1 hour, I get a higher bandwidth, right, from 5G. And then I go back to my normal consumption. So this quality is called QoD. So this is where Vonage, as a part of Ericsson, the Vonage communications platform, is really enabling this. And for the very first time in the industry, we have enabled this with the help of Ericsson into the hands of the developer ecosystem to monetize these opportunities, specifically for CSPs, right? The second one is cloud interworking. So today the businesses are using multiple clouds. It's very important to make sure that the NAS underlying architecture is also enabling a similar capability. So this is the very important and real use case today in the industry. The third one is in India you get to hear a lot about smart cities and the education boom that is happening right now. So these are real-world use cases. How cool it would be to have it is in place already. It is in play already to have NAS enabling the connectivity. Let's say you have an IoT device, right, in your smart city, or you have an edge device, traffic management, and things like that. So these are all flexible consumption models that you will be, utilizing. The people will be utilizing. So this is where NAS has real, potential, including education services as well, right, research and so on and so forth. And finally, the last one I can think about is the usage of AI and security, right? AI, obviously, there's nothing without AI today, and if you don't talk about AI, then you're not relevant. So the usage of AI and ML are not just for orchestration and automation, but also specifically on security, right? Threat detection, fraud detection. I think these are the real use cases today, which will be a real deal breaker for any provider.
Yeah. Quite interesting, especially there's a lot of talk about AI, and you talk about it But maybe let me throw it to the panel before we go into a next set of questions. Are there any other use cases that you think are logical, feasible at this point in time, which can immediately be adopted?
Yeah, I think, Sumit, the only quick thing, I think let's make it real. Let's take an example of, let's say, I don't know, a coffee chain or food restaurant who's wanting to, and Mayank talked about very relevant thing, you want to quickly roll out, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of your branches in India, right? What you're looking at? You're looking at getting your coffee shop up and running quickly. Yeah, you're looking at accessing whatever applications you're doing, because every time your application doesn't work, it's a loss of business directly, right? You want it to be secure. And you don't know, India is a big country, you don't know whether a 4G or a 5G is available there, a fiber broadband connection is available there, et cetera, right? And you also want, to manage 500 of those branches. These problems, which can be very, very different, I think we just need to keep in mind that that's the problem that we are trying to solve. That's bringing all of this to life. That's one example. I thought that's a good context to say, because this is, for example, something that we've experienced very recently. So I think that's.
Thank you so much. Yes, Mr. Johar, please.
I think I missed the first round, so I'll just brief on that. First is that as far as use cases are concerned, I am onto the other side of the table. We at CP Plus, as a physical security company, we are providing physical security as a service, which is SaaS again. Now, in this kind of connectivity environment, we have got only two options. One is that captive network, and the second is NAS. The key requirement at our place or with us is the security, that is the prime one. The second is the bandwidth, so that we can run the video analytics required for analyzing the thing, including behavior operations and all other things. The third thing is the speed and thing. Now, when you come onto the use cases, like majorly onto the bank services, like we are providing these services to different banks, where they have thousands of ATMs, and those ATMs are coming onto the command and control stations, which is run by us, data center run by us. Now we need these services to make those things reaches here, and then we do the analytics and give the dashboard thing to the customer only. So all these services are being provided by us through NAS, and the customer gets the dashboard only. So this is the use case which are working on, other than what Manjunath has said, that traffic management and all, that I'll come later.
So Mr. Johar, while you are at it, if you can also maybe answer that, what are the transformation challenges around this, right? Because you're talking about the management, the logical security, the physical security, mainly the aspect of it. But when the organizations are moving from a traditional network to a NAS, what kind of challenges do you see practically the organizations are having, and especially coming to you with?
See, first of all is that if you talk about the captive network challenges, I'll just come on to that part first, just to make you understand that how the industry would move on to the NAS, so that the friend sitting here can provide more onto it. The first thing is that captive network is like, if you lay down time-taking process, then the bandwidths and all are basically is a costly process, time-taking, and the management is this. When you get into the managed services like NAS and all, it is easier to get, because the kind of POP you have nearby POPs, you just connect with them and you're reaching to the destination. Now, the major challenges which basically customer feels is that the security concern of it, that how secure the NAS is. The second is that when that security comes into the place, then we have to see that the data what we take is basically a kind of privacy data. It is a video, whether it is in ATMs or it is basically, we are selling a lot of IoT devices. We are selling building management system, the complete building, and for that building we are making the command and control station. So that building security is again a privacy concern. So security is the major aspect. The second thing is that the kind of speed and the downtime of the network. So these are the three major things which has to work on to a level that people start working onto this or shifting onto the NAS services rather than the captive one.
Sure. So, Mr. Mayank, maybe why don't you talk about the future trends that you see, in NAS? Although we are still at a nascent stage, it's still evolving. The future is still not here yet when it comes to this kind of a service. But then, where do you see it evolving in the next 2 to 3 years? That's my first question. And the other question would be, how would you realistically, take certain actions to monetize this?
So I think let's talk about the future aspect first, or maybe some of the things are not yet implemented, but there has been talks about that. And one of the things I think Mr. Alok brought up is AI/ML integration, which is very key. Generative AI we are talking about, but how that generative AI can integrate with network as a service and provide intelligent and self-optimizing NAS platform is a very key element. The second part is integration of NAS with SASE to bring more security, which Mr. Lalit was talking about, to bring data integrity, threat protection, mitigation, etc. And then there is a cloud or multi-cloud environment and hybrid cloud environment. That is something, again, a very interesting area that we need to look at. We are talking about it, but how much it is implemented, it's everybody knows. So that is another key. And coming to your second question, in terms of monetization, as a service integration or system integrator and consultant, we have been talking to customer in terms of how to monetize it. So one or maybe few angles or few points that we could think of or talk about is how we can provide bundled services to customers. So it could be a NAS bundled with cyber security, NAS bundled with IoT services, or NAS bundled with a cloud environment, and provide the services as per the needs or the demands of the customers for providing a wider range of services. The second aspect could be building a tier-based catalog. So providing a catalog which a different kind of customer can take it up based on their needs, based on their budget, to implement and provide services to their, or take up those services. And the third part or third angle could be the usage-based service or usage-based catalog. So pay as you go or bandwidth on demand, those kind of packages that can be built to create a faster monetization of NAS platforms.
Thank you so much, Mayank. That was quite detailed. And David, you're sitting right next to me. I've not forgotten about you. You're a lower middle order batsman, probably with the most impact. So look, Edge and IoT, they're also converging, integrating with NAS to an extent. What are the implications do you see of that? And what should organizations be careful about?
Yeah, I think when you talk about Edge and IoT, of course, they're very interesting for many reasons. I think one of those is really the order of magnitude or the sheer volumes when you look at what Edge may be defined as or IoT. Anybody can deploy a single server or a cloud or a Kubernetes cluster, right? But consistently doing that for those clouds or those clusters, doing it the same way with exactly the same outcomes across thousands of sites is not that easy to do, right? And then, now in the context of NAS, when you start to layer on tens of thousands or maybe even more developers who are going to be deploying to these vast resource pools or capability pools that are at the edge, you really have an exponential challenge to deal with. And it's not just about deployment, but it's very much going back to, I think, what Manjunath has talked about, and that's about your ability to lifecycle manage everything. And it's extremely important that I would say the
the automation capabilities of the service provider and the frameworks and the proactive nature of the automation is really taken strongly into consideration so that you can actually deliver the services that the customers are going to want. Because as those developers are consuming services, and that might be pods of metal, it might be some storage, it might be some slices of GPUs, ultimately your automation, which is effectively your methods and procedures for patching, for updating, for upgrading your machines and your servers, and ultimately the security and compliance levels that have to be met, not only in the country, but specific to the industries that those developers are coming for, becomes extremely important. And I think going back to the monetization side of it, you know, if that is done in the right way, right, then the developers have a higher level of predictability on and consistency on those functions that they're consuming, right? And as a result of that, everybody who's a part of that chain and that transaction or that ecosystem move a bit closer to like a mass customization based upon standardization and automation. And ultimately, that's when monetization happens, and that's where value is created for everybody in that ecosystem.
I think it makes complete sense, David, and thank you, so much for that. Look, NAS does not come with, comes without its challenges, right? There are some of them you have highlighted, and some of them, our panel members have highlighted. But just throwing it to all of you, and if you can pick it up, and please feel free, anyone, if you would like to, as long as you have the mic with you. So David, maybe starting with you, what are the typical challenges that the organizations would then have in order to adopt NAS? And I'm not talking about from a service provider point of view, because there can be a lock-in concern, right? So organizations do have that concern, and Manjunath, once after David, if you can come in on that, that how can that be eased out? How can the organizations or consumers be provided a view to say that a lock-in may not be that big a problem going forward in the future? But yeah, what are the concerns beyond that?
Well, I think kind of one of those fundamental starting points is that one size does not fit all for the developers. I think that's been covered. You're going to have so many different types of use cases and the different types of resources that the developers will need to draw upon, for those network functions. And so that proactiveness, the approach to security, the approach to automation, it cannot be an afterthought. It needs to be stitched into the strategy and the fabric of how all of the infrastructure is built. I think there was some talk about common infrastructure to be able to address that, and then also the security around the types of functions and ultimately the infrastructure that's made available to the developers. How you do that? How do you expose the APIs? How do you provide access to GPUs or to bare metal that is also needed functionally for the 5G networks as well, and do that in a secure way and maintain both the performance of the network and drive a great customer experience at the same time?
Yeah, those are definitely valid points. From my perspective, I think, yes, vendor lock-in is a key problem, right? I mean, anything as a service, and vendor locking, you start from the standard cloud providers, it's always a hot topic for us. So in my opinion, similar principles, that we have learned from any cloud as a service, would apply here as well. So as an enterprise, if you're looking for a NAS provider, I think there are two things you need to look at primarily. One is what kind of underlying architecture is being used by the provider, right? Is that an open architecture following some kind of a recognized standard like the TM Forum standard or whatever that is, right? So you want to make sure that you understand the underlying architecture and how that is being exposed and how you're consuming it. This way, if you do want to move to a different provider, at least at an architectural level, you're kind of safe. The other thing is many of the services that are being exposed from the NAS providers are probably going to be with APIs, right? You're going to provide some kind of APIs to provide those services. So you would want to look at what type of APIs, how are those APIs built? Are those APIs built using open standards, right? So you want to make sure that the NAS provider is able to adopt recognized frameworks and open standards, across all the different layers, so that just in case, you really want to move out, your moving out to a new vendor is slightly less painful. Because if you don't do that, if you start using proprietary, frameworks or networks, then you're really, really locked in, right? So you want to make sure that you're fluid. The third thing that I can think about is, using some kind of system integrator, right? And these system integrators could be your backup or an option for you to kind of provide that additional layer or fluidity in case you want to, consume a particular, service from one NAS and another service from another NAS. So I think a combination of these three would be a good mitigation plan for any enterprise to, adopt NAS.
Thank you. And that brings me to a very crucial element of regulatory. We have recently DPDP Act coming into India. We have, and I'm sure there'll be other stringent regulatory guidelines as well when it comes to data privacy that we can expect in the future. So, Mr. Lalit, how does NAS help organizations remain compliant to some of these norms? Or does it enhance that, makes it easier for the organizations, or it's another complication and increases the compliance burden?
Not really. I mean, it's if somebody takes a platform approach in delivering network as a service, then the compliances that you have to meet are SOC 2 compliances, IPDR compliances. Then, it's a regulated business, so of course all the network services are regulated. So those compliances can be like concentrated at just one, at your service delivery point, and it's a one-time activity, And of course, as new compliance comes in, you just have to ensure that you have your annual compliances in place, so to deliver this. And if you have compliances, then you have your customers' trust. Okay. It comes with that trust factor, okay? So I think those are important. They're not barriers to the business. They are more like enablers for winning customers' trust, and that's what I would say.
Thank you. I think we have touched upon quite a few topics. Maybe let's give an opportunity to our audience as well. They have come in numbers finally. So if there are any questions that you would like to ask, yeah, please. Can someone help her with the mic?
I have two questions. First question would be, when we talk about network as a service, how do you see the gig economy which is developing right now? Because it's really difficult to retain talent. And talent retention is also very important, because when people who are even working in the cybersecurity part of it, how do you see how you are going to tackle this problem? That is point number one. Point number two, when you talk about open source, what are the 5 top parameters do you think as a cert professional people should look into? Because anything which is open source, it is available to the dark web. Thank you.
I'll try to attempt. So your first question was around talent, and I think it's a very broad question, not specific to NAS per se. But I think in today's age of rapid adoption of technology and changing landscape in the macroeconomics, what is, in addition to the technical skills that we usually try to hire when we interview somebody, I would spend equal amount of time on soft skills. So what are the soft skills? There are thousands of them, but I'll pick 2 of them which are very important. One is how does that person work in ambiguity? How comfortable is the person working in an ambiguous situation? The second thing is the urge to learn, right? Because the technology that we're talking about today may not be relevant 2 years down the line. So in addition to the technical skills that you would evaluate, I look for these 2 specific soft skills, because that kind of makes me future-proof. So if this person is able to learn a technology today, I'm pretty confident that he'll do and learn that 2 years down the line. And 2 years down the line, my macroeconomic conditions may be completely different. And if the person is able to mentally prepare to handle those ambiguity, because no one knows the direction, the leader may not know the direction as well, as the leader may not have the right answers at this point in time. So in terms of talent, I think I'll look for these two soft skills in addition to the technical skills. In terms of open source, I think there are tons of material available on that. I think the key thing is, going back to my previous topic that I touched upon, is standardization, right? Wherever there is standardization, I would, the enterprises and companies would need to make sure that, that particular topic is considered while choosing a provider. And the second thing is, using the right framework. If it's for an API or whatever that is, it should be a common framework. So you want to make sure that the software that you're using is primarily touching these two aspects. And the third thing, of course, is the security aspects of it. How comfortable or how resilient the software is to make sure that the security aspects are taken care of. I think these are the three things which are more relevant. I mean, there are several things, a lot of material available, but in the current context, I'll talk about three. So I don't know, anyone else wants to add?
Yeah, I can add also on the open source topic, and of course building on security. That of course is important, and especially in the fact that every organization is using open source today. Not only the operating system, but the infrastructure as well that the applications are running on, and ultimately what gets exposed to the developer. So yes, absolutely, security is very important. I think it also goes back to the question about vendor lock-in that was defined earlier as well. And this is where open source also plays a very important role, because service providers will make a decision on, for example, which hardware do they want to use. They may change that decision in the future. Which type of GPUs they're using today. That may change in the future. But for the developer, it's extremely important that there's consistency and predictability. And this is the role also that open source has to ensure that that experience is also very good. I also touched upon automation, because these networks are becoming extremely complex, especially as you get into 5G, you get into the introduction of cloud-native architectures, cloud-native applications. That complexity is really going through the roof. And so it's really important that you've got the automation to be able to handle that and to be able to provide the types of services ultimately that the developers are going to want to consume.
Yeah, hi. So my question pertains to network as a service. Connectivity, it is not limited to one or two. Obviously, it cuts across all the devices, softwares, etc. However, like David said, a lot of times network itself is an afterthought, and network as a service is a next layer to that. So when we talk to our customers, network as a service still is an unaware subject. It is like, in the previous session also people said it is still evolving. So what are industry leaders and your organizations doing to make the customer, the industry, make them aware of what network as a service is? Especially players like TCS, who kind of sit right in the cusp of digital transformation, where you are right in the core of making in touch with the customers and talking to them in their language. How are you making them aware of the benefits of network as a service, and what role do you play?
Thanks for the question. See, as a system integrator, as a consultant, we have been asked these kind of questions always by the enterprise customers and telcos. Okay, so our final customer is, you can say, the enterprise customer, and they are pretty much confused in terms of how we can use it. So one of the key things is, how to convince them on that model. So how we can create a business case for them, For example, one of the use case Mr. Alok talked about is creating a branch quickly for, let's say, a McDonald's, right? So that is something which we have to go and talk to that particular customer. We have to educate them in terms of how much benefit it will bring in terms of efficiencies as well as the cost. So that part is very important, the discovery and creating the business case. And then after that, we go into the deployment or the pilot and then deployment in multiple branches or creating multiple branches. That is one of the use cases that we are talking about. And the second part of your question was our role into this organization. Okay. So see, right now this is the play of ecosystem. This is not a single player or a game, right? So as TCS or as an SI, we create that ecosystem, we build and tell customer that yes, we are there for you, and will build that blueprint, will bring the right partners for you, and deliver the whole solution to you. So partners could be a CSP, partners could be a equipment vendor, or a partner could be anybody else, like the CP Plus or anybody else. So that's how as TCS our role is.
I just want to add on. I think, see, let's talk about cloud. When we spoke about cloud, we had exactly the same question that you're asking today, right? How do customers move on to the cloud from their on-prem or current solutions? And I think even today, many customers are still, holding on to their on-prem infrastructure today. So I think the key thing is to show a roadmap, right? So you cannot move everything, bundle it and move it out there. You need to have a roadmap to how this will evolve, at the same time showing the benefits of each and every aspect of it, right? So today, you're talking about moving payloads and the standard infrastructure partially into the cloud and operate in a hybrid kind of infrastructure. I think similar roadmap on the NAS as well is going to help the organizations to understand the benefit of that. It's going to be a very difficult one because in infrastructure, you're talking about data, right? Here you're talking about networks. So you have a whole lot of new challenges that comes into your gamut, like security being the most primary one, right? So the key thing, my view is, in addition to what Mayank was talking about, is give them that roadmap and path and start with small steps, right? And that's how I believe NAS adoption will kick off. And then forums like this, right? Is precisely designed for that reason, so that people can hear, debate, talk about it, because not everything is, green. Not everything is hunky-dory. There are issues, there are challenges. I think forums like these is going to help debate and understand, which aspects of NAS. Do you really want to take everything on NAS? Probably not, right? You might want to pick a few aspects of it. So those are the healthy discussions that the industry needs to have to adapt NAS. That's my views.
Hello, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. So, Alok, sir, you were telling about the bandwidth, how it's dynamically, when the guy is playing the video game and he needs more bandwidth, like you provide that, and then so you're built dynamically, not as a flat rate. So my question is, so in order to achieve this service, from my knowledge, what I can think is you can only do that with a network orchestrator. So what kind of architecture do you think is would you suggest to provide that service?
Orchestrator is a technical term, so yeah, you eventually need a platform which coordinates with the underlying network to deliver you that performance. That's one part of it. The other part of it is what the customer sees. So for example, a bandwidth on demand, a portal which says, you want to go from A to B, this time of the week, this time of the month. You can scale up from the example that Lalit gave, from 10 MB to some much higher bandwidth. So these are the two elements that can be there. Now there's no one universal answer to the orchestrator, because your underlying network and technologies has evolved. It is multi-vendor, multi-OEM, it has evolved over a period of time. So the orchestrator, yes, is a technical term, but it basically needs to talk to the underlying a Cisco or a Nokia or a Ciena or all of that people to deliver that service at a network layer 1. and the second to give the view to the customer, who's the end user, to say, I want to use internet from Monday morning to a Friday evening and whatever flexibility that you need. So did I get your question right? Is that the question?
Yeah, yes, sir, I understood that. Yeah. So, like, you depend on, like, these technology companies to open their interface to the orchestrator, or they must provide their own orchestrator as well, like everything to you?
Yeah, of course. You need to create that orchestrator to talk to the network. Yes, you do need those APIs to talk to those individual technology stacks. There are some people who do provide that orchestrator as a service also, or many people are taking the approach to build their own orchestrators to have maximum flexibility. So there's no one answer to that, but yes, there are multiple orchestrators available.
And another question, sir, I'd like to ask is about network slicing. Like, would that be as a good economically viable service to offer in network as a service? Like, if I'm a SI and can I offer, like, someone like you, network slicing as a service? Is that a good thing for me to, like, am I being delusional or realistic?
Oh, absolutely. Network slicing is a great feature, which is, for example, there in the 5G networks. It enables you to unlock a few very, very interesting use cases. For example, creating a private network and all of that. So yeah, network slicing per se, does open up a lot of new use cases. The private network, 4G or 5G, is one of such use cases.
Like, would it be possible for, like, the SI to, like, make a slice, like you know how you said about your video game use case scenario, like make a slice that fits in all the QoS parameters, bandwidth, latency, and then provide that as a service to the telco?
I think, let me just interrupt you there. Look, you're not clearly on mushrooms, right? So that's fine. We can hold on to that discussion in the scarcity of time. But let me request Mr. Manjunath to take this last question up, and then probably we'll pause our discussion there and we'll quickly sum it up.
And sorry, like, just one last question to Mr. David about Ubuntu. Sorry. So, sir, like, I mean, I have like personally worked on a Kubernetes cluster in, like, Raspberry Pi, and so my question is about micro Kubernetes. Would that, like, because I'm currently working on Etsy NFP Mano, and Kubernetes is like, I can do VNF onboarding with that network orchestrator. But because I'm not sure if micro Kubernetes, like, does Ubuntu have a plan to, like, make the software compatible with open source network orchestrators like Etsy, Mano, and ONAP?
Yeah. Yeah, I think exactly. I think we can answer that. It's a very specific technical question. We can take that separately so that we can actually pass it. Manjunath, you wanted to talk.
I think the gentleman brought about an important point about slicing, and I think we didn't do justice to answer his question fully. So if you're listening. So I'm trying to answer your previous question about slicing, and you asked me, is that really real, and am I dreaming, right? It is real. It is very much real. And I gave an example of where, as Vonage, we have implemented this, and it's available today. We have a partnership with Deutsche Telekom, wherein you can do on-demand boost of your 5G bandwidth, right? So this is real, very much real. So to answer your question, we're not talking in the air, in thin air, about conceptual. These were concepts a few years ago, which is very much real, and Alok spoke about some of the other use cases as well. So, absolutely.
Look, this can go into multiple other discussions as well. And we can have, shoots from here, from your questions. I think please feel free to catch some of our panel members outside if you can. But look, let me sum it up. I think we had a great discussion here. So thank you so much, first of all, to our panelists. Couple of pointers that maybe I've been able to sum up. And, one is the build. You build it right in the first place. You build it to be agile, to be nimble. And that's where the adoption chances increase. The second takeaway that I would have from this discussion is trust by design. So your security has to be embedded into your solution in your design itself, which David, you spoke about. Compliance is another element that we can't get away from. It has to be as much as possible, follow the architecture, follow the standards, and be compliant to the regulatory aspects as well. because those are something, those are given in the basics, and you have to ultimately reduce the compliance burden on the organization as well, because any which way there are a lot of other tech compliance, privacy compliance, and so on and so forth. Interoperability came out as another key concern, because you would want to avoid the vendor lock-in and make it interoperable from with respect to, and that's where the architecture and the build comes in. The other important factor that came out was also the use cases. You need to build the use cases. So it's not about what came first, the road or the car. It has to be built simultaneously, and ultimately, we need to make it a bit modular for businesses to adopt it. It's not a big bang at this particular point in time, and it's a journey. Like we had journey to cloud, we had journey to other services. This is also going to be a journey which is going to evolve over a period of time, and ultimately, the business side of the organizations have to come together with the tech side of the organizations to think it through on how they're going to scale it, how it's going to be used, and I'm just going to add sustainability on top of it, because it's great for sustainability as well. And if you do it right, I think the organizations can really drive value out of it, and monetization can ultimately then become a more secondary concern than the value that it's going to add. So let me sum it up at that, and thank you again to our audience as well, and thanks for the questions that came up. Those were very intelligent. Thank you.